going to review the tracking I did with my Dexcom G7 on Saturday, October 19th, 2024. The chart begins here just after midnight, and you can see a rise at this point to 6.7. This is because just a little bit before here, I would have eaten some blueberries, 40 grams of blueberries, which I sometimes do before bed because I think getting those extra little bit of carbs sometimes helps me sleep well. Then it tracks through the night pretty consistently, not a whole lot happening. It's tracking at 5.8 and 6.2, pretty steady all the way through until I get up in the morning, which was around 10 a.m., and it's still tracking steadily. Over on the left, you can see my day timer for that day, and I keep notes as to what I'm eating and what the glucose levels are, both on the Dexcom as well as when I do a finger stick on myself. Let me zoom in on this a little bit. So, as noted, the Dexcom was remaining pretty steady at 5.8 to 6.1 through the night. When I woke up, I took a couple of measurements. I thought the second one was more accurate, and it was 5.1. And this is what I've observed, is that my finger stick is consistently 1 full point under what the Dexcom is saying. Anyway, as it says here, I took a shower from 10:45 to 11, and I mentioned that the Dexcom is tracking at about 6.1, but it rose briefly after taking the shower to a 7. And I've noticed that in the past, that it does rise from the heat of the shower. On this chart here, you can see, just like I said, it's tracking 10:30 pretty steadily at 6 in that range. And then there's a little blip here up to 7 from the result of taking a shower. But then it comes right down again. In fact, it even dropped quite low to 5.4 here. My next rise is from eating a grapefruit at 11:40 a.m. and the Dexcom gradually rises to a peak of 7.4 at 12:13. So it took about a half an hour to get a glucose spike from a half grapefruit. The Dexcom starts to come down as I'm eating a low-carb breakfast, right down to 5.4 here at 1:38 p.m. My daily journal reveals the nature of this low-carb breakfast: an ounce of Havarti cheese, half a can of salmon, a fried egg on egg white toast, which my wife makes, which is a protein bread, no carbs in that. I also ate 3 thin strips of crisp bacon, another fried egg on toast with butter, and some dry roasted cashews. I tend to like to test my blood sugar when the Dexcom is tracking fairly steadily, which it was doing here in the afternoon between 2 and 2:30 at 5.6. So let's see how that looks over here. See, 5.6, 5.6, 5.6, 5.6, it's holding pretty steady. And that's why I took another contour finger stick, and it was 4.8. Almost a full point difference between the finger stick and the Dexcom. The Dexcom shows a gradual rise here as I'm going about my business, and then I decided to go for a walk. And as I did my walk, the Dexcom started to come down, all the way down here to 5.3, as I was pretty much returning home from my walk. So I've noted that in my day timer, walking about 35 minutes, Dexcom coming in at around 6.2, and then that was at the start of the walk, and then descending to 5.3 by the end of the walk. Getting back to the chart here, I then got ready to go out. I was going to go out for some wings with some friends of mine, and the Dexcom is tracking fairly steadily. I went to the pub at around 5, and during the time I was with my friends and eating wings and so on, it wasn't doing much. It was holding pretty much steady. Also had a salad, which I don't normally eat, and by 7:08, I'm already back at home. In fact, I was still a little hungry when I got home, so I had 3 olives, a pickle, a fried egg, some cashews, and 3 squares of Lindt 85% dark chocolate. And then I watched an episode of Netflix with my wife, and while doing so, the Dexcom rose slightly to 6.6 by 9:43 p.m., which I noted was from the dark chocolate. This was even after going for a brief walk with my wife and our dog around 8:30. So looking at the graph, picking it up from about 7 o'clock, and then eating some food, including dark chocolate, going for a walk with the dog, and a bit of a delayed effect here, but a peak of 6.5 at 9:28 p.m. and even a little higher here, 6.6 at 9:38 p.m. As the evening went on, I was doing work on my computer, and the Dexcom is tracking in the low sixes, generally speaking. And because of that, and because it was pretty steady, I decided to do a check at around 11:30. It was actually more like 11:27 to be precise, on my Contour fingerstick. And as the day timer shows, Dexcom tracking about 6.1 to 6.2 versus the Contour fingerstick of 5.3. So once again, we're looking at almost a full point difference between the fingerstick and the Dexcom. The graph ends at midnight, but I was still awake. In fact, I continued to watch television. I was watching a hockey game, and as usual, I had some blueberries. Later at night, I had them probably around 12:40 in the evening. And once again, here's the gradual increase from the blueberries. It was about a half-hour duration from having the blueberries at 12:40 and the new peak at about 1:15 in the early morning. So that's again noted in my day timer, eating 40 grams of blueberries at 12:40 a.m. and gradually seeing a rise on the Dexcom in the 6.8, 6.7 range about a half hour later at 1:15 in the morning. And then I went to sleep at 2:15, and now we're into the next night's sleep right here. That is a summary of Saturday, October 19th with the Dexcom G7 and the occasional test against my fingerstick device.